Well, guess what season it is? That's right, it is pumpkin season. Pumpkin spice, pumpkin soup, pumpkin, everything pumpkin. So for the whole month of October, all of my videos are going to be about pumpkins. To get started, the very first pumpkin recipe I'm going to make are some pumpkin spice muffins with cream cheese filling. So I'm not using this pumpkin today. This will be for another recipe. Instead, I am going to be using just some canned pumpkin puree. So let's start making those muffins. So instead of using pumpkin seeds, I'm going to be using 3/4 cups of roasted salted pepitas. They are very similar. Anyway, so I'm going to take my 3/4 cups of pepitas and I am going to drizzle over 1 tablespoon of melted butter. Then I'm going to mix up 1 tablespoon of packed brown sugar, a 1/2 tablespoon of white sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and then I'm just going to toss it all together. Once it's all tossed together, I'm just going to set it aside. Next, we're going to make the crumble that's going to go on top of the muffins. So we're going to start with 2 tablespoons of flour, 2 tablespoons of white sugar, 2 tablespoons of packed brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of oatmeal. We're going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of pumpkin spice and 2 tablespoons of cold butter. Put it all in your mixer and let it mix for a few minutes. Then, as with all of my crumbles, I'm going to mix it by hand until it's at a consistency that I am happy with. Once it reaches that consistency, then I'm going to take some of those sugared pepitas, mix them into the crumble, put it all into a separate bowl, set it aside, and wash my mixer. Now let's get our muffins actually ready. So, dry ingredients first. We are going to put in 1.5 cups of flour into a separate bowl. Then we're going to mix in a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. We're also going to mix in a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, a 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, a 1/2 teaspoon of cloves, and 1.5 teaspoons of pumpkin spice. We're going to mix this all together and we're going to set it aside and get our wet ingredients ready. For the wet ingredients, I'm going to start with 2 eggs. I'm going to put them on my mixer, start mixing, and then I'm going to add 1 cup of white sugar. While it's mixing, I'm also going to add 2/3 cup of oil. And then after I add my oil, I'm going to remove it, scrape down the sides of my bowl, and I am going to be adding 1 cup of pumpkin puree. Once that's added, I'm going to put it back on my mixer and mix it until it's all combined. Next, I'm going to take my mixer bowl off, scrape down the sides of the bowl, and now we're ready to add the dry ingredients. So I'm going to put it back on the mixer and just very slowly add in all our dry ingredients until it is all mixed in. Now that all the ingredients have been added, I am just going to scrape down the sides of the bowl and give it a mix by hand, and then we're ready to start putting it into our muffin tins. To get my muffin tray ready, I am using these cute fall paper liners and I'm going to line my muffin tin with them. I'm now ready to add the muffin batter to the muffin tins. So as I do this, I'm doing it with a fairly big spoon and I'm only going to fill them about 3/4 full. These are almost ready to go into the oven. The last step is to put our crumble on top of each one. Now this is why I only filled them about 3/4 full, is because I wanted to leave room for the crumble. So put your crumble on top and then they are going to go into a preheated 350 Fahrenheit oven and they're going to bake for about 20 minutes. Sometimes it's a little faster, maybe a little longer, depends on your oven. Remember to check them with a toothpick. If it comes out clean, they should be done. And 20 minutes later, they're all done. Okay, so I'm going to let these cool. I want them to cool completely before we put any icing inside of them. So while they're cooling, let's go make that cream cheese icing. Alright, so in your mixer bowl, you are going to cream together 1 block of cream cheese with 1/4 cup of unsalted butter. Yes, I'm using unsalted butter this time because I really want the cream cheese flavor to shine through. Also, I was really forgetful and forgot to take my butter out of the fridge, so it was too hard to use. So what I did is I grated it. I know it looks like I'm adding cheese, like shredded cheese to this, but it's not. It is actually butter. It's it was too hard to use, so by grating it, it made it much more workable. Just a little side tip if you're forgetful like I am when it comes to making icings. Now that my butter and cream cheese are mixed together, I'm going to add 4 cups of icing sugar. Once those are added, I'm just going to let it mix and mix and mix until it reaches a smooth consistency that I am happy with. Our muffins are cooled, our icing is ready, so let's put these all together. So, I had to find something to poke holes into the muffins, and the only thing I could find was one of my piping tips. So I'm going to use that and just poke a hole into the middle of each muffin. After I used my piping tip to poke holes in all the muffins, I did wash it, and now I'm going to use it again. This time I'm going to be using it in the piping bag the way it's meant to be used, and fill that piping bag with the cream cheese icing. Once my bag is full of the icing, then we are going to fill each of the muffins. The last step I'm going to do is take a baking sheet covered in some parchment paper, and I'm going to roast those sugared pepitas that we had left over, and I'm only going to roast them in a 350 oven for, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Now I'm going to take those roasted sugared pepitas, and I'm just going to use them to put on top of each muffin so that it looks pretty and presentable. Alright, so here's a close-up of the muffins. I cut one open so that you could see that the cream cheese filling actually went all the way through the middle of the muffin, just the way I had hoped it would. Well, here we go. They're all done. They look fantastic. They smell even more amazing, and I know these are going to taste like the best muffins in the whole wide world. So, my husband's already eaten one, loves it. His only complaint is he doesn't like the pumpkin seeds on top. They're just not his thing. I kind of like the added crunchiness, but at the same time, I could do without them. Just the crumble would be good too. So, as you can see, I did put the cream cheese all the way in, and it worked really well doing it that way. These are so good! Oh my gosh, they're so good. This one is definitely a winning recipe. I love it. Love it. Which kind of surprised me. I have not made pumpkin spice muffins before. I don't know why. So I'm really glad I did it this time instead of my pumpkin loaf. So yeah, this recipe is awesome. Go check it out. Give it a try. Let me know if you've changed anything, if you liked it, didn't like it. Anyway, it's delicious. So remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and that notification bell. And next week, I think I'm gonna do something with the pumpkin. So check out next week's video too to see what I turn this pumpkin into. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys all next week.